It's funny how, depending upon the context to which you're looking at something, that other people may be in on it or other people may be entirely out of it. Right now, something historic has happened. Profound, potentially, has just taken place a few days ago. And the media, even though they mentioned it, are not quite getting it. It's not sticking yet. It's something that is of historic proportions. It is something that this country, even though we've had in the past before, maybe in a shadow of it, we've reached what I would consider to be a milestone in world history, not just American history. Confirmation. Confirmation. Under normal circumstances, you're not going to see me chest thumping a defense bill. You're not going to see me like, yes, we're going to spend $1 trillion on the military. Take that. You're not going to really see me doing that per se. But on this, slightly. This bill, $741 billion, Donald Trump wouldn't sign it. Donald Trump wouldn't sign it probably for two reasons. One, they were trying to constrain the troops that are being, he's basically trying to pull the troops back home, or at the very least draw down before leaving office. This is one of the campaign pledges that Donald Trump made. He doesn't seem to be able to fulfill that pledge. We're pulling those troops out, and Congress is going to basically try to hamstring him. On top of that, he wanted to name the Confederate statues, or he wanted to keep the Confederate name of the various military bases and whatnot. Congress wanted to change it in a bipartisan fashion. Congress was so emphatic about this. Congress is so much on same side on this very specific issue of war that 335 to 78 bipartisan vote to approve the legislation. National Defense Authorization Act. $741 billion. And they gave it a bulletproof, veto-proof, lame duck president-proof majority. That's going to pass. Now, what else is in that bill? And that's the part that I am talking about. Yes, 741 billion is an ungodly number. And yes, 335 to 78 gets across the level of solidarity there is on imperialism. Oh, we love that killing and burning abroad. Yes, give us some more of that geopolitics. But there's also the UAP task force that's in that bill. Meaning, despite the other stuff that's been in the bill that's pretty much is always in defense bills, the UAP thing is different. The Unidentified Aerial Phenomena Task Force. That task force, its job is to go out, get information, present to the public, present to Congress. And I strongly suspect that there's probably another motivation that is not necessarily disclosed to the public, which is dealing with threat detection and what of that information is a threat. For years, Luis Elizondo was part of the ATIP program. Now, the government hadn't outed this program. This program was outed, I think, in 2017. But basically, they were studying UFOs. And they were studying these things for the course of years. Luis Elizondo comes out after scientific investigation over the course of several years on CNN says, yes, I believe we're being visited. Nowhere on this planet has the capability to do what the craft are doing. Yes, we can explain the physics. No, we don't have the materials. No, I don't believe anywhere else can do it either, meaning on this planet. Yes, I believe we're being visited. And as opposed to everything stopping, trumpets blaring, people being shocked, they went to a Pepsi commercial or something. Yes, the commentator was shocked, but they went to like a Pepsi commercial. The world just kept spinning. Like, I just imagined something more profound. In this very specific case, though, the Pentagon, the U.S. government, not just politicians saying this or saying that, but in law, with money behind it, has just instantiated the UAP task force. That is astonishing. Think about what has taken place. You've had all of these videos being released. This, for example, this was a video I did. Well, I showed this earlier in one of my other videos. Take a look at this. This is the International Space Station. Look at what you're looking at below. The space station sees a craft. The station itself zeroes in on that craft to figure out what it is. That craft is not a plume of smoke. That is not a bag of wind. That is not a satellite. That is not something that ours. That is something that is moving with its own energy and own thought. And after a while, what you're going to see is that craft tilt upwards and leaves the frame. Leaves the frame. With a plume of smoke or something behind it. What is that? What is that? It's by definition an unidentified aerial phenomena, an identified flying object. It wasn't ours. And then it's this question of, okay, if it's not ours, whose is it? Where did it come from? And it's not just this. It's the Nimitz. It's the fast move. It's the videos that the Pentagon had released. It's the pilots that were telling you that, yes, I was watching X or Y for this period of time. Yes, there was some kind of weird consciousness thing that was going on. It's the people who were in those situations, who were looking at the radar data. And again, the number of pilots, not just in the United States, all across the world. Britain has opened its files. France has opened its files. The missile silos that the crafts shut off. We have had these encounters over the course of the entirety of this country, especially going back to the time when the nuclear bombs were released. I'm making a point that even though the U.S. government acts as if this is not something it inquires about, the U.S. government does inquire and was studying this issue. And the fact that it's coming out now, my question always is, why now? This was something that was studied in the past, despite the fact that pretending this thing was a conspiracy theory. At the end of the day, you're a ball hurling through space. If you exist, if life can exist in volcanic pits, why don't you believe it can exist elsewhere? Think about what I'm asking you for the moment. I'm talking about people, something like us, just intellect, with the capability of using their material resources to make this kind of techno-wizardry and magic. We have a penchant to go into other countries, or other worlds, with a minor bit of technology that we have. Why wouldn't something else do the same thing? Why wouldn't it act in similar ways? Why wouldn't it have similar drives? And why would you believe that God would put Earth in a little dome and nothing else out there should be like us? I'm making the point that life seems to grow and want to thrive in all sorts of conditions, which means that there could be all sorts of planets that have this recipe of a thing to exist from immaterial. It's utterly fascinating. And this notion that we go to other countries or other worlds, but nothing else would ever come in, nonsense. Our science is rudimentary. And even with that rudimentary level of science, we send people into a tin can into other worlds. I'm making the point that the same impetus may be out there. And that impetus may have brought people to our shores from another world. And I'm saying, of all the things that it could be, with all of the voluminous amount of information that is available to us, that can't be discounted. The only other prevailing hypothesis that we can go with, at the very least that's likely or potentially likely, is it's us. These craft are us. Meaning the secondary space station, a breakaway civilization, a civilization that basically has access to all of this technology that when our own pilots, military pilots, looked at it, they thought, it can't be us. We don't have those capabilities. We don't have craft that can do that. We don't have materials that can endure that much stress. The human body couldn't even endure that much stress. Depends on the technology. And it depends on how that craft is actually moving. It's very possible that what's taking place internally in that craft is not exactly what you think is happening. Meaning, yes, the craft is moving. No, the craft is not necessarily moving through space in a traditional way we would blow a propellant out of the back. It could be using other methods. I am making the point that it's one or the other. It has to be one or the other. It's either us or it's not. Both of those things are utterly and entirely profound. And right now, the U.S. government, under normal circumstances, pays no attention to this issue, doesn't look at this issue at all. You may find a person here or there, but ultimately, this is off the table. Beyond the shores of the world doesn't count. That's no longer true. I'm going to read to you what the defense bill basically does. And right now, the United States government, in law, has confirmed the existence of something out there. Welcome to the Soapbox. My name is Jamarl Thomas. This is the Progressive Soapbox. Guys, if you dig this content, please like, share, and subscribe. You can always support this content through PayPal or Patreon. This content is brought to you by you, and I appreciate you the opportunity for allowing me to do so. So yes, Congress, bulletproof majority. That means the National Defense Authorization Act is going to go through. And within that act, there is a demand in the 2020, right here, the Director of National Intelligence and the Secretary of Defense would have 180 days after the budget's passage to create an unclassified analysis of UFO sightings. The analysis could feature a classified section if deemed necessary. I would deem that it will be a classified section in that, almost by definition. If you come across information that Luis Elizondo has been coming across for the last several years, the equations that they come up with, the studies that these guys were doing, these guys were studying warp drive, invisibility, these kind of just weird, bizarre physics, all this stuff was in the black for the longest time. This was stuff they were doing behind the scenes. Depending upon what they see and what it means, yeah, you'll get a classified section in this, especially if they're honestly looking at the subject matter. Right off the bat, the only reason this is being created is because of the voluminous amount of information that hit the press. If you and your government and your media and your politicians are seeing stories that are saying your pilots are seeing craft in the skies, your pilots have been seeing craft in the skies. These craft shut down the nuclear facilities. We have craft that are near our bases that are doing things that we can't do, that is taking maneuvers that we can't replicate, that is behaving in ways that we don't quite understand. It goes beyond our devices and looks like technology. Doesn't look organic. Meaning there are things that are beating our craft in the skies, and we're spending $1 trillion on the military. What do you mean there's something beating our craft, outperforming us in our own space? And so their job is to figure out what that is. But the fact that you need to figure out what it is, in and of itself, means it's something. Congress is not appropriating money for nothing. When all of this stuff is hitting the news and the public asks, what is that? Congress is also stuck with the question of what is that? And when Congress is stuck with the question of what is that, the secondary question also, is it a threat? These guys are reactive, right? These guys are imperialists, neocons. Is it a threat? The most rational question in the world when you hear something is invading your airspace and doing things that your aircraft can't do. So, rational. The Director of National Intelligence and Secretary of Defense will have 180 days after the budget passage to create an unclassified analysis of UFO sightings. Now, the catch becomes, what do they tell you? Do they bullshit you? Do they lie? Do they use this as a pretext to basically try to pretend that the UFO sightings that the people in the pallets and the other countries I've been talking about is somehow swamp gas? I have a feeling that you've gone too far for that to take place. But nevertheless, this is what's happening. Right here. The vote comes after a series of high-profile articles in the New York Times describing encounters between UFO and Navy pilots. You have the Nimitz. You have the other video of the Tic Tac. You have the Fast Mover. You have all of these videos. And we have been told that that is just the tip of the iceberg, that there's all sorts of evidence, not just evidence from the standpoint of videos and pilot testimony, but also materials. The U.S. Army has signed up with Two to Stars Academy. Two to Stars Academy is basically the Tom DeLonge's Rock Stars. That's his organization to get out UFO information to the public and supposedly build a rocket ship. The belief here and the problem here is that the way they believe they're going to get money for this particular topic is through defense. Ding, ding, ding. Which is why the Army has signed up with Two to Stars Academy, probably dealing with the metamaterial stuff and see how that can be appropriated to military usage. But understand again, if the Army is signing up with an organization whose aim is to get out UFO information to the public, that's their aim, that's their job, then you have to question, oh my God, is this what they mean by confirmation? Meaning the legitimacy of government itself, the materialist system that is government. And I know it's immaterial in a way, but I'm talking about just from the bare bones of public process and what resources are dispensed for what the government decides to do and invest its attention into. Money is being invested into this. Attention is being invested into this. Severity, realness is being invested into this. Confirmation of the existence of a phenomena. Something that was not done prior. This is not, disclosure. The thing that UFO people always talk about, where the government comes out, here's the alien, here's the UFO, vote whoever, and they go away. But this is confirmation. This is the government has deemed this legitimate. The military, the thing that prides itself on its ability to understand the world, because it needs to be able to have that understanding of the surroundings to basically know not to die and how to kill. That organization signs up with the UFO thing. The government itself puts into law itself in the defense bill UFO signage and UFO analysis and disclosure of that information to Congress and to the public. The question really always boils down as to what will they do? What will they say? Why are they doing it now? What are they trying to get out? Is there something that they need to get out, that they need to get to the public, that they need to kind of come out with this? Are there factions that are within the government that just gotten strong at this point, believing that maybe Clinton or somebody else that would be in that would be more likely to usher this in? I hate to tell those people, Joe Biden is not the person. This is a big lift. If somebody is going to make this issue of disclosure, there are a host of things they're going to have to deal with that no president has ever had to deal with. Think about the abduction thing. What is abduction, people, all of a sudden? Hey, I told you I was abducted. Now you guys have legitimized this case. Are there lawsuits against aliens for people saying they were abducted? I mean, think about this stuff. What does it mean for religion? What does it mean for energy? What does it mean for scientists who look at what they were doing from the standpoint of fossil fuels and everything else, and they realize, hey, they can't get from wherever they're coming from to here using fossil fuels. So what are they using? Doesn't that somehow give you this, maybe not the answer, but to let you know that an answer is there and that your science is just fundamentally missing something because the answer is there? Meaning the flaw is not the thing itself. The flaw is the science. Science is just descriptive of reality. And if the reality is that this thing exists and this thing is here, and if your science is saying that thing can't get here, then the flaw is not with the reality of things. The flaw is in the model of that reality. The science. Science gets a loophole. It gets a window into something that it wouldn't have had otherwise. And in getting it that closer to the answer of whatever that thing is and how that thing got here. I guess I am making the point that the moment that you bring science to bear on this, you acknowledge that it is something there. I am arguing that this is what Grant Cameron was talking about. This is what was whispering behind the scenes when people in the know were saying, what you're going to get is confirmation that this is a real phenomena, that there's a there to it. Even if you can't necessarily discern what the there exactly is, and even what the there actually means, the fact that you're confirming that there's a there at all is historic and unprecedented. I don't know where this goes. And to be honest, it feels dystopian in the way that it goes. I can't see it going well. I have a hard time seeing how any civilization, if indeed that's what we're talking about, and that's what these guys come out with and say, yeah, this is something that's not us. Something is coming to our shores. And there's a question on whether or not they would even disclose that. Put that in perspective. But whether you want to say it's a drone, whether you want to say it's some kind of, interdimensional phenomena that takes place, whether you want to say it's some kind of natural phenomena that's been here for God knows how long, and our technology has only got to the point where we can see it and interact with it, whatever you want to call it, whatever that is. I would say the nuts and bolts of people like us, or something like us, has the ability to transfer here. Because if it's not, it would be far weirder, far more interesting. And that is a world that, I have to be honest, is hard to understand. With so much in the black already, and that much more gets into the black. When items say something gets attacked, what about false flags? How do you trust the government that you can't even trust to run an election to give you information about something that is out there? All of that stuff goes on the table. Our world, to some degree, gets destabilized, even with the best of intentions. That's why I have a hard time believing that anything would ever try to contact our planet, at the very least, if it has the best of intentions in mind for our planet. Observe, yes. Interact, I'm doubtful, at least on a large scale. I could be wrong. Abductions, I can kind of see. I could see interaction with beings from the standpoint of mind and everything else. But a large-scale formal interaction, can you really conceive of a scenario with this world, with these politicians, and the chaos that you have in the various countries around the world? How that works? Postulate the best of intentions to the beings. But they're beings like anything else, and any decision that they make, regardless of how informed that decision is, will have consequences, just like any other decision that is made by any other being. I'm making the point that if we're talking about any sort of being, whatever that particular being is, it has to have some capacity to interact in our physical matter reality, whatever that capacity is. If that capacity has some kind of input, a decision is a decision, whether it's made by a person or being. I'm making the point that there is no God ability of infallibility in dealing with something like that. Any decision, regardless of how well-meaning, if it has a negative consequence, has a political consequence. I'm just saying, this takes us into a very weird world that can very much be dystopian. Think about the arguments that Congress starts to make of, we need more money because we need to build more weapons. The equations that we're seeing from those craft. I think we can build something that matches and uses energy to that degree where we can have floating around in our space. Hey, we were able to get to Mars. That's great. We also have platforms that are floating around that is waiting to drop stuff on a whim, or drones that are using power from the sun that was ooped up or souped up in a way that can just stay forever in the sky. Maybe absorbing energy from various sources. And when something needs to attack, AI kicks in and it automatically just deals with it. Like, I am making the point that this could be a dark, dark dystopian world where technology works in tandem with this excuse that we need to protect ourselves from something out there. Look, be careful what you wish for. Like, share, subscribe.